What's up, everyone, and welcome in. Whoops. I forgot this new microphone contraption I have here. All right. Hopefully that's good. And we're starting out with a bang. Welcome in, everybody, to The Lawyer You Know, where we talk about legal cases from legal angles with a real trial lawyer here who has tried criminal cases, civil cases, and even cases against pro se criminal defendants, and even against pro se criminal defendants who say they don't abide by the rules of this courtroom, and have even represented some criminal defendants that refuse to stand when the judge walks in the courtroom, refuses to acknowledge the judge's position and power and rulings, and just basically refuses to acknowledge that they are even subject to the rules of law and the court system in the country that they live. So we're going to talk about this Darrell Brooks case. I don't really know where this video is going to go because I've had a lot of different questions come through on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to follow us on there, @Tragos Law is our handle. And that's why I'm talking about this case, because I was actually going to pass on it. So at first I was going to do it. We did a short. There wasn't a ton of interest in the short. Didn't seem like a ton of people cared about it. But now that it's actually happening, a ton of people seem to be watching. A ton of people seem to have questions. How is it possible this goes on? I know it's on right now, Mo. She's reading the jury instructions. Eventually, the state's going to get to their opening statement, and then Mr. Brooks is going to get to his opening statement. We will see how it goes. And potentially, I know, Melisasi, I know it's on right now, and I know a lot of you may be watching it, and that's perfectly fine. What we're going to talk about on today's video is we are not going to stream the trial. I'm not going to deal with all the crap going on in YouTube right now. I'm not trying to add that battle to my list of battles going on. And that's, 100% perfectly fine if you all are watching the trial instead of this and want to check this out later. Because what I'm doing is I'm going to answer questions that you all have about this process, why it's allowed to happen like this, what option the judges have. Is the judge making a mistake? Is the criminal defendant making a mistake? Is the state making a mistake? And if you don't know what this case is, it's Darrell Brooks, who has been charged with multiple counts of murder and other charges around the murder, driving his car through the parade, through the Christmas parade in Wisconsin, killing multiple people. And he has been doing all sorts of theatrics to cause a circus before this trial starts. Melisasi's watching both. Now that's impressive to multitask like that. I am going to watch the opening statements, and maybe I'll come back later and break down those opening statements. But as we sit right now, the actions taken by the defendant in this case are not, in my opinion, one that is incapable of understanding the legal proceedings. That is insane. That is mentally incompetent. Legally speaking, it really does not. Yeah, Ashley Harris, that's true. It really does not strike me as that type of situation at all. And at one point, the state attorney put on record that he has not only been able to sit here and argue in court, object, make arguments about COVID protocols and about how his injuries need a nurse to come immediately, how they need to stay the case. He is sending them motions that are articulate with proper grammar and certain legal arguments in them. And he has done nothing but show that he is mentally competent and able to handle these proceedings and understand, I should say, these proceedings, not handle them as an attorney, but understand these proceedings. And he is not incompetent. The state agrees. The judge put evidence on the record, an argument on the record stating the same thing. Everyone in that courtroom believes that he is trying to delay this trial, trying to create an appeal, trying to create a mistrial. And I got to be honest, he is well on his way to doing it. All of this right now is outside the presence of the jury that we've had so far, besides, when he was on video and things like that. But to me, once he starts doing this stuff in front of the jury, that's when the real question is going to come. Is he going to cause a mistrial? Is the judge going to throw this case out? They really don't want to waste the resources, but the state attorney's office also argued that it's not just about resources here. It's also about justice for the victims and their families. And the more they delay, the more they sit right here and watch this mockery, the more miserable it is for them. And I agree with the prosecutors in this case. You cannot just continue this case because of how he's acting. So one of the main questions I'm getting is, what can the judge do? The judge could throw him out of the courtroom. She could gag him and bind him, like we saw on one of those other. I did a video on was this constitutional when they put something in the defendant's mouth and taped his mouth shut when he wouldn't stop yelling at the judge. That actually is, legally speaking, constitutional in certain jurisdictions and in certain situations. It seems crazy that in today's day and age we would be allowed to do that. This judge has decided not to do that. And to me, the judge has made the perfect decision with technology that we have in today's world to put him in another courtroom, but it feels like he's right there. So he's being able to confront the witnesses and confront the state attorney and see the jury. Now he's back in the courtroom now, but the judge keeps saying things that are, it's like you're talking to a child is what I feel like. She's saying, as long as he will pledge to me, as we know from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, pledging something and promising something's different than doing it. But she's saying, as long as he promises to obey the court's rules that he knows about, he can come back in. And when he decides to do that, he comes back in. So to me, the judge is handling that properly. The orange jumpsuit he is deciding to wear. Everybody knows it's a bad idea. Everybody knows he shouldn't do it. He was in a coat and tie other days. Yet, he is doing it to prove a point. And I think he thinks it's going to be a reason for an appeal, but it absolutely is not, in my opinion. Because the judge has said, we think you should get the coat and tie. The state has said, we think you should get the coat and tie. But you're deciding not to, over and over again. And he does decide not to when he's forced the question. But when the judge says things like, well, again, we've asked you over and over again during breaks. He's like, nobody asked me during that last break. She's like, okay, I'm asking you now. Would you like to put the suit and tie back on? And he says no. He is definitely messing with, this court system and these rules, and he's taken advantage, in my opinion, of your right to represent yourself. But you do have that right. You have that right to represent yourself. You don't have to trust it into anybody else's hand that you think is against you, doesn't care about you. And Doug, he's making a mockery of the court system. I agree with you. But again, I hope that this makes, a lot of people think the judicial system's unfair, and it is unfair in a lot of ways, but this is not one of them. The judicial system could force you to be represented by some government lawyer paid by the government that's also prosecuting you. I can understand why some people may have a problem with that. But this is the result of what we get. He has the opportunity to play this out the way that he wants to, and he lives with the result. It is not going to be an appellate issue. This is not going to be something the appeals court says, oh, we feel really bad that he had to wear this orange jumpsuit. He made that decision. The judge absolutely gave him every opportunity to change his mind, the timing to change his mind, and he decided not to. And she's given him that opportunity a million different ways, especially when we talk about objections. He's able to make objections. He just has to write down certain legal reasoning for his objections, which every lawyer would do. Here's the thing. The judge is allowed to hold him to the rules of a lawyer, but they have to give some leniency where a layperson may not understand that. That does not mean he can make improper objections. That does not mean he can slam his hand on the table or walk out of the courtroom or scream at the jury or stand up and interrupt people, especially the judge. He cannot do things like that. He still has to abide by the rules of a lawyer. Morgan is asking, what about him not having a lawyer? Other people saying, I think they should force a lawyer on him. They should appoint a lawyer. If he is competent, which everybody has found to be competent so far, he is allowed to make the decision to represent himself. I understand people don't agree with that. I understand people think that's not how it should be, but that is how our rule of law is written, and I absolutely agree with it. People should make the final decision when their life is at stake and in the balance here. And that's what he's looking at here. And he should make the decision. We can disagree with it all we want. We disagree with the decisions he made to drive his car through a parade, right? I mean, I think all of us disagree with that decision. I agree. Kelly's Corner said the judge is not wasting her time giving him all the rope he needs, and he is using it. get to some questions here. The Catch has joined the membership crew here. That's awesome. Thank you for that. John O'Rourke, why don't they appoint him an attorney? He does not want one. They did appoint him an attorney. They will offer him an attorney all the way it goes. Now, similar to the Summers case, they're not going to have an attorney come in and out. They're not going to create a mockery. They say, this is your final decision. We're drawing the line in the sand. This is it. AK-47 said the judge doing an exceptional job. Stace on the case says he has a fool for a client. The famous line rings true. But yeah, they did appoint an attorney. He doesn't want one. Tori, I know you've been sending me a lot of questions and screenshots and articles on this. So you are one of the ones I'm here answering questions for. So I'm glad you wrote this one in. I think this judge is doing a great job going overboard with making sure everything he says and does is on the record. I'm so glad we're looking at this case. I think it will be very interesting. I agree. I think this case is really interesting, but I think that he is potentially going to blow it and end it all before it even starts. Yeah, the patience of Job. Somebody said, one of my cousins said a joke one time when he was saying somebody is just the most annoying person in the world. He said even Job would take a swing on you, which I thought was a pretty funny one-liner. Yes, Melanie. So this guy is in a position where he's holding up this sign on video, objection, objection, objection. This is in front of the jury. They see him kind of, acting a fool. And then he just sticks the sign in his stomach. Or in his, the waistband of his pants, which was just, you look, there are optics to this. Okay. There are definitely optics to this. And it doesn't look good when you're sitting there with an objection sign in your pants. Judge is reading jury instructions to the jury in your murder case, and your life is literally on the line. And I was kind of pausing here because let's take a look at it. So this is a scene here from today where the judge is reading his jury instructions, and this is our guy Darrell Brooks here with the objection sign in his waistband, just saying, I object to everything going on here. And he's out again. So they're just kicking him out, bringing him back in. He's making a mockery here. Yeah, no, I'm not watching it live right now. I will go back and watch it later, and we can talk about, we're going to do updates in this case. Okay. We're going to do updates in this case periodically from some of the really wild stuff that happens. So if you guys have questions, feel free to write into me on Instagram and Twitter. If you haven't subscribed to our page, take a second, subscribe to our YouTube page here, The Lawyer You Know. Because of all the interest in this case, we will cover it from time to time and do some updates. Do you know how long it's supposed to be? I haven't heard anybody say how long it's supposed to be. Judy, how long can this case continue? Wow, that's funny. If the current behavior keeps up, I can't see a trial actually happening like this. It would be tough to see the case go all the way to the end and finish, but I think it's possible. We'll see. He really just doesn't seem like he is going to do it appropriately. John O'Rourke, the judge, I thought, said she could appoint an attorney if he continues to disrupt the court. So if she does decide to bind him and mute him, she will appoint an attorney, but he does not want one. And to me, and the judge knows this as well, that creates a bigger appellate issue than doing everything you can to let this criminal defendant represent himself. The little misdemeanor 2-day trial I had against a pro se criminal defendant was also so miserable. He was like coughing up stuff, trying to act like he was throwing up and sick. He was like spitting all over counsel table. He like fell down and acted like he passed out on the first day of trial. So he had to stop everything. He made a false police report against a small police agency here, and the entire police department came to testify against him. He basically said they stole money out of his wallet when he got arrested, but he had won a case a month prior against a different state attorney handling it pro se. So he went out and won. He did not win against us. We pounded it away. We just pounded away at all of his statements not being true, but the judge gave him so much leeway. It was so frustrating to try the case against him. He appealed it and lost as well. People are saying I refuse to watch it live or replay. I don't need to subject myself to Darrell Brooks. I agree with you. I think he wants, and so one of the things the state wanted was the witnesses' faces to not be on camera. And he said, no, it's public. I want all their faces on camera, basically. And it just, that's bad. I mean, he's trying to, it's like when people do stuff and stream themselves doing horrible things. Like they want everybody to watch and they get a kick out of like having this be at the end. And I do agree that that is terrible. And that's the one bad thing about having cameras in the courtroom, because at some point, if there were no cameras in this courtroom, he'd be doing it just for the audience in the courtroom, which is basically the victims' families. But now he feels like he can do it to the world. Thank you, Azam. Speaking of the world, worldwide here with Azam. Is bear law one Sovsit groups you ran into? Oh. I don't know their name, the sovereign citizens. Alex, I don't know if any were named bear law. We had a ton when I was at the state attorney's office. You'd be surprised how many get arrested. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised if you know about how all that works. But they get arrested all the time for loitering and trespassing and open containers. And they're a lot of them are homeless because they don't believe in having an individual residence, and they'll sleep on private property, and people ask them to leave nicely and then have to kick them out. And they always get arrested for resisting arrest as well, because they never want to go with law enforcement, because they say, I don't recognize your authority over me. I'm not going with you. So that happens all the time. And it's a little frightening to watch and just be like, how can you be so out there with this belief? It's like you live in America, you commit crimes, and then you really expect that by saying you don't believe in the authority of the courts or law enforcement, that's going to get you out of this. It's a weird thing to watch. It's a weird thing to watch. Danimal Cracker. Is this judge wrong or weak to be allowing this bleep show, or is this just an impossible defendant? It's cringy to watch. This is an absolutely impossible defendant. I don't think the judge has been bad. I have watched a couple days of her. I feel like she's been stern enough, but nice enough to where he is not going to have any appellate issues. But I do think leaving him in that other courtroom and muting him whenever she can is probably the best way to do this. Because of technology, we're able to do stuff like this as opposed to gag him and seat him at the counsel table. But to me, I think the judge is actually doing a pretty good job. But I can understand how lay people would look at this and say, no way, this is horrible. I can't believe the judge was. I don't fault anybody for thinking that because of the craziness that's going on. I think she is doing everything she can to protect this case for appeal, try to get it to go, try to get it to resolution and to finality for the victims and their family. I think she is doing everything she can. I actually think the state's not been overly nasty to Mr. Brooks. I've seen some state attorneys be nasty in situations like this where I'm like, you are not helping. You are not helping. I don't feel like they've been too bad. Obviously, there's a line. What would happen if an actual lawyer acted this way? He'd be disbarred and held in contempt, probably, and thrown in jail, especially if he continued to do it after all of the warnings. Like, think about all of the warnings, Valerie, that this judge is giving him. Are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to do a rapid test? She offered him a rapid COVID test because he said he wanted to wait till he got his COVID results, because he said he's lost his taste. I think they have really done what they can. Yeah, Melisasi said the state's been very helpful. I agree with you. I think the state has been helpful. They've been helping the judge as well keep a clean record. Alex, bear law is Ronnie Lee Davis, the kidnap case. Okay. Well, the ones that I came into contact with were just an individual person. They don't have IDs, which is interesting. The state is making sure he has no room for appeal, Mo said. I agree, and I think that's part of the state's process, is getting justice and getting it the right way, not in a way that's going to create an appeal. So what's the difference here? Why is he getting away with this behavior? Because when you have pro se defendants, they get a lot more leeway, whether it's fair or not. But you don't want to, if people want to take advantage of the system like this, like here's what I'll say. Here's the give and take of this, okay? If people want to take advantage of the system like this, he's going to have his circus here for however long this trial goes on. Do you think there's any chance he wins acting like this? Do you think there is any chance he wins this case? Because I think he's going to get to lie in the bed that he makes. Is that the way the saying goes? You guys know I'm horrible at these one-liners, but he's making his bed and he's going to have to sleep in it and he's going to have to lie in it. And I think that's what's going to be the outcome. We just have to get there as a judicial system. And I think that's what the state and what the judge needs to do. And I think that's kind of what they're doing at this point. Now, there are certain cases, like even the Trevor Summers case, right? He lost in a resounding way and ended up with life in prison. But you could see as he was representing himself, it's like maybe the jury would feel bad for him. Maybe they would think about it this way. You could see that in certain cases. Even Ronnie O'Neal. If any of you guys were around when Ronnie O'Neal happened, he was one of the first cases we really broke down. He made some arguments that, you could understand. I mean, his opening was kind of wild and some of his screaming and stuff, but I mean, he made some arguments. He did some things where you're like, okay, I can kind of understand this. He lost and got life. And they actually seemed a lot more like decent human beings when they were trying their case than the actions that they were charged with. But when you see Darrell Brooks like this and you see what he was charged with, and then they see how he's acting like this, I really don't think that any jury is going to vote and stick to a not guilty verdict in this case. And I haven't even heard all the evidence. Lois, Peter, is there really such a thing as a sovereign, or is it just in someone's imagination? I mean, that's like asking me anybody that has faith in anything. It's like ask if it's real. People think that they can prove that it's real, but I think what makes it real is people say they act like one, and they deal with the consequences of being one. So I think there are actual things as sovereign citizens. Now, they can believe they're above the law and wrongfully arrested and wrongfully jailed and wrongfully fined, but that doesn't stop them from getting arrested and jailed and fined. So yes, I think they actually exist, but they're not actually sovereign over the rule of law where they live here in America. No, Tori, you don't have to apologize at all. I always feel bad when people send me a bunch and I'm not able to because, for whatever reason, but no, I'm glad I was able to get to it. Eliza, isn't him being removed from the courtroom cause for a mistrial? No, it is not. It's actually one of the repercussions the judge can do. And he is now back in the other room, everybody is saying. So to me, it's a situation where the judge feels like she has to mute him. He's not going to mute himself. Putting him in the courtroom allows him to view everything because the confrontation clause is important, right? You can't just actually, there have been cases where the criminal defendant's not even there for the case under certain circumstances, but she's doing everything she can to use the technology to make sure, again, his constitutional rights are intact regardless of how he wants to act. And some of the things that have been interesting is throughout this pretrial proceeding, the judge has asked him to read stuff. He says, I don't want to read it. You can't force me to read it. That's fine. Put it on the record that I gave you the opportunity. He goes, well, you didn't actually give me the opportunity. He's like, we actually sent it to you last night. We're giving you the opportunity right now. And she puts on the record all the ways that she actually gives him an opportunity. And again, in certain situations, it's real. Like defendants aren't given the opportunity to do stuff and it's a legitimate appellate reason. But you can't just say it because then the judge can, on the record, they're typing everything down. We're recording everything. The judge can say, fine, I'll stop you right now. And to me, she's done a great job with that. She wants him to use the headphones, but not if he's going to throw stuff, not if he's going to hurt somebody. He takes off his shirt and turns his back to the camera. She says, that's fine. Let the record reflect. This is what he's doing. Because let's think about this for a second, okay? Let's say he appeals the case. Let's say he loses and he appeals. And he uses some of these issues on appeal. COVID stuff. He didn't get to read something. She sent him out of the courtroom. She muted him. She, made him hold up an objection sign instead of being able to make objections. Who makes the decision? You all know this by now. We've talked a lot about appeals. Who makes the decision on appeals? A bunch of judges. And what are a bunch of judges? but a bunch of lawyers who became judges, many of whom tried cases, many of whom litigated cases, many of whom were in court. And what do you think they're going to think when they look at this video or they read this transcript? What do you think they're going to think? Well, I can tell you, they're not going to take kindly to this. They're not going to see this as an appellate issue. They're going to look at the judge and think all these lay people are like, man, I feel bad for this judge. Man, is this judge being too weak? Man, I think the judge should do something much worse to this guy based on how he's acting, because he's making a mockery out of our entire judicial system, which lawyers and judges dedicate their life to being a part of and trying to make the best that we can make it. How do you think appellate judges are going to look at this case if he thinks these are creating really good appellate issues? Jens Stewart, sovereign citizens still must respect common law. No, not to kill or steal, for instance. I have seen sovereign citizens. I have not actually seen them have a consistent rule of law or list of laws that they keep. Some keep some keep others. He repeatedly states that he does not understand. No, because the judge will explain it to him the best he can. And here's the other thing. We can take any piece and it may look bad, like I don't understand. But the judge gave a tremendous colloquy to Mr. Brooks before he decided to represent himself once and for all. And one of those things is there are going to be things that happen in this trial that you do not understand. Do you know who understands them? That lawyer right there that is free of charge for you. So get that lawyer, because there's going to be things you don't understand. He said, I understand that. I waive that right. I want to represent myself. So now saying he doesn't understand something is just saying the judge is right. And he wasn't going to understand stuff through this trial, and he had the opportunity to have a lawyer help him. But he decided not to. Carol Black made a live. That is exciting. Maureen Scott. How can he claim sovereign citizen but still want to rely on the First Amendment? Not just that, but he keeps asking her under what rules of law she's doing this or that. I mean, come on. Can't expect him to be consistent. Look at the situation he's in. He's not exactly a good decision maker, I'll say. I think we can say that at least. Yeah, they don't repay mortgages or car loans or things they think they're entitled to property. That's stealing. It's a good point. The certain contract, they just don't even care. They'll sign them and not care. But it's like, what does that say? It's like you're signing the document knowing you're doing that. We would wrap our mind in pretzels trying to figure out, how or why certain people think the way that they do. Not to say all sovereign citizens are like that, or all of anybody that thinks anything is like that, right? There are different nuanced people in every people group. But he does not seem like one you'd want to model your sovereign citizenship after. Lisa G, can he at the 11th hour decide he wants a lawyer? I haven't watched every second of the pretrial of this, so I don't know if the judge said, like in Summers, this is it once and for all. Once you represent yourself now, it's over. There's no going back. I don't know if he has standby counsel like they did in the Summers case. But my guess, honestly, would be if he requested a lawyer right now, the judge would say yes. The judge would probably beg him to get a lawyer right now so they can finish this case. He objected to the jury instructions. He's objected to everything. But what's interesting is the judge has explained this. The judge has explained that you already had your opportunity to make a formal objection, and we could have had an argument about these preliminary jury instructions. You decided not to do that. That's one of the things that he didn't read that she said he should have read. So when he holds the objection thing up the whole time she's reading the jury instructions, that doesn't really mean a whole lot because he already had the opportunity. It's the same thing for us. We go through the jury instructions together with the other side. Actually, this is funny. This is happening in one of my cases. And if they complain about one of the jury instructions, it's like, we agreed to these. You wrote some, I wrote some, we edited them, we sent them back and forth. We all read them together with the judge, approved all of them and said yes. So making an objection now is untimely. And frankly, the judge can just say, you waived that objection. You missed your chance to fight about that. And that's kind of what she's saying here. So she is treating him like a lawyer in certain circumstances, and that's smart. And that's exactly how you should do it. He is poorly trying to prove the straw man argument. Okay, she already said she wouldn't give him a lawyer after he represents himself, so I don't think she would give him a lawyer again. Gosh, I would. I would go the other way now. I'd say, all right, this is it. If you choose a lawyer now, it's over. You can't go back and give him a lawyer and not let him go back. Put him in the other room. Judge is not allowing a standby. See, I'm saying as nice as this judge is acting, she's laying the hammer down. Don't be fooled. She's super smart, I can tell. Linda LaFerrere, sovereign citizen. So we've explained that. It's just somebody that thinks they're above the law. They're not subject to any laws of this land. They never signed up for that. They don't believe in law. So since they don't believe in the law, they can't break it. And since they can't break it, they don't believe in our judicial system. So none of these rules are real. They don't believe in our jail system. They don't believe in any of it. So it can't hurt them. It can't touch them. They do not have authority to arrest a sovereign citizen here in America. They don't have authority to throw him in jail. Somehow they still do, but a sovereign citizen usually believes that they do not. And there's a different systems and forms of belief in different nuanced areas of sovereign citizens. Phone is blowing up a little. Wirebird, Peter, tuned in from South Africa, worldwide. It is great to hear your opinions and feedback on these law matters. Clearly, you are proud of and enjoy your profession. Thanks for taking the time out for us. Thank you. These kind of comments are so nice, and I read a bunch of these. I try to just skim over the nasty ones, and I read a lot of these, after the video posts. A lot of you share them with your friends. They're like, hey, this person told me to come to your channel, and it's awesome. I love it, and it's so awesome. I love it. It's like the dopamine hit that you need. That's just so nice. And all of you guys provide that. So it's really fun for me too. And the negative stuff doesn't bother me. So it's good. It's a positive way for social media here. Stays on the case. Isn't jury instruction agreed on by counsel? So not necessarily. So we give our proposed jury instructions. They give theirs. Sometimes we give joint proposed jury instructions, but we don't always agree. Sometimes there are some we argue over and the judge has to make a call just like anything else. Right. So if I say I want jury instruction to say A plus B, and the other side says I want to say A plus B plus C, and the judge says, okay, make your arguments. Okay, I'm going to go with A plus B plus C. So I didn't necessarily agree to that, but I knew it was coming. I had my opportunity to make an objection, make an argument, and it's on the record. Eliza, thanks for covering this live. Yes. Thanks for covering this live. Galactic Historian said it's not about belief. Excuse me. It's about assumed power of the state and the role of the oath court members take. Okay. Prosecution made Brooks a USB of all their exhibits, videos, and all pictures and paper. Prosecution also making sure there's no appellate issues. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's doing everything they can. Whenever you have something like this, everybody is working together to make sure this doesn't happen in an appeal. Azam, another super chat. Hi, Peter, off topic. Don't laugh. Your lives are usually around 2 to 4 a.m. my time, right? You don't want to know what I'm thinking at 2 to 4 o'clock. I'm thinking Z's in my head and sheep, counting sheep. No alarm. See what did. LOL, just kidding. But I get to learn the law. So much fun from you, and I can't thank you enough. Azam, look at that smile. It's always a bright light in here. Thanks for coming again. He says he's not a citizen, just sovereign. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Appreciate all you guys. Explain the Elizabeth Holmes screw up. Pete is actually in the process of prepping a Elizabeth Holmes update video. So that will be coming out at some point. Denise Roller, thanks for the super sticker. Sparkling Dragon. Exactly. You just got to skim right over them. Skim right over them. We don't delete them. We leave them and skim over them. Madeline Retman. Per what Natalie, the lawyer chick, read yesterday, there is a state statute that would allow the judge to force an attorney on his case. Yeah, and there is, and that's especially when you get to a certain point where you just can't let him participate in the trial because of how outrageous he's being, which some would say he's already gotten there or he's getting close. But from my perspective, that is a last resort, in my opinion. That's a last resort. So I think the judge wants to try to do everything she can to not get there, but if she has to, certain jurisdictions do allow that. Kathleen Sabina is a new member. That's awesome. Membership link is in the video description if anybody is interested. It's me, Josie81. How hard is it for the jury to take him seriously? Well, I have a question. I always say you guys are like members of the jury. You are potential members of the jury from wherever it is that you live. Would you be able to take him seriously? How would you look at him? How would you look at him holding the objection thing up the whole time, having to be sent in another room, wearing the orange jumpsuit, putting the objection board in his waistband? How would you take him? Would you take him seriously? I think it's tough. I mean, I think it's really, really tough. Sparkling Dragon said, I would be beyond annoyed. I think that is and would be the common theme. Yeah. Angry, absolutely not. I would be annoyed. I mean, most people would be really, really frustrated and annoyed by this. And what's sad is if this is their first experience or only experience in the judicial system or the jury system, they're going to think it's whacked out. Yeah, nobody is giving positivity to how he's acting. Jackie T, can the lawyer that deals a short straw and had to represent Brooks politely decline? In certain circumstances, but not always. Eventually, somebody's got to say yes. Usually the public defender's office, if they talk to people about it and then they pick somebody that will do it. Kathleen says, as a jury member, I would try my best to focus on the evidence. That would be what I would try to do. I agree. But in the jury instructions, it says you are allowed to look at the witnesses and the evidence and the way it's presented to you and take it as true or discount it as potentially not and give it more or less weight depending on your feeling of that evidence and the testimony. Have you seen this kind of tantrum during a high-profile criminal case? I've seen lawyers get wild in high-profile criminal cases. I mean, even I didn't love some of the stuff I saw in the Rittenhouse case by the prosecutor. There was a couple other cases that we have talked about that some of the stuff has really been rough to watch. Stay said her blood pressure is rising just watching him. I feel like, listen, we all try to be reasonable, but we should also realize when we do get to a point where maybe we have lost our objectivity. I think that's important to know because it does happen. And to me, it would be tough. It would be tough to sit there and watch this and not think, why is this guy acting like this? Why is this guy acting like this? And what kind of arguments is he going to make? You know, that's what I would think. That it would be tough. Thomas Joseph, this is a good point. This ridiculous dude tests the system, but it does not demean it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not great, but the system is the best we can get. We have the best judicial system in the world. I believe that firmly with my whole heart, but it's far from perfect. Far from perfect. Yeah, I saw that. Bentley, he filed a motion about the pronunciation of his name. I can't remember which one is Darrell or Darrell. I can't remember which one it is he wanted. Sparkling Dragon, thank you for that. And Marlene. Yeah, poor victims. I really feel for the victims. I really, really feel for the victims. And like, if you just think about the assistant state attorneys that are trying this case, just to have them in the other room muted is probably so much easier to do their opening statements and put on some of their witnesses and do direct examination. Um, it's got to be miserable as they're objecting and just making a ruckus. I remember one of the things the pro se defendant that I tried a case against kept doing was he would just cough, and it was like a like spit into a napkin while we're doing our direct exam on a witness, and then we're just like, but about halfway through day 2, the entire jury was looking at us like, every time he would do something, every time he would cough, every time he would get up and ask questions, every time he would try to act like, he couldn't possibly go on. Yeah, there were a ton of charges. People are saying 77 or 65. That's why reading the jury instructions alone took like over an hour for this judge. I was listening to most of this on 2 times speed, but it was wild to hear the judge go on and on. Donna Luzier. A quick question. If a person's videotaped doing, say, a shooting, why is a trial necessary? Why waste the state's time and finances? So there are all sorts, every case is a little bit different, but there are all sorts of reasons: temporary insanity, coercion, I was forced to, entrapment, it wasn't me on the video, it looked like me, I was using a fake gun, I don't know how they died. There's all sorts of arguments that can happen even if it was videotaped. But obviously, if you videotape, just think about the popcorn shooting in Hillsborough County. Everybody thought that was a videotape of a murder. It actually goes to trial and it's not guilty because of self-defense. So a video doesn't always just hook, line, and sinker it, but it's a good question. I understand it. What possible defense does he have? I have no idea. Armand, I have no idea. I have no idea. That's one of the interesting parts to me, to see what he does. Yeah, it is almost like he enjoys this. All right, so here's what I'll say. So we can continue this conversation in a way that you all enjoy most. As you're watching this trial, because I'm not going to be able to watch every second of it, as you're watching this trial and things happen, pull a clip, a timestamp, a question, a screenshot, whatever it may be, to hone in what your questions are, what you want to know, what you want to discuss. Yes, I'm very interested to see what his opening is like. Maybe we'll do a reaction to his entire opening. If he gives one, maybe he'll just say he doesn't think it's fair in this case. He's just not going to do an opening and not going to question any witnesses. That could be an angle he takes. We'll see. But send it to me on Facebook, or on Instagram and Twitter at Tragos Law here, or on our community page. Send it to me and I'll try to hit as many points as you all are interested in. And I will try to continue to do updates on this case because it is wild. It is abnormal. And that's what you guys seem to love, are these cases that really make us think and test the boundaries of our judicial system. So I appreciate everybody joining me on this live. Glad I was able to answer a lot of your questions. Again, share it with your friends if they're interested in this case as well. But we will be back at it some more. Put in the comments here where Joe can watch the trial, because I'm sure there are a bunch of different ways to watch it. If you just type it in on YouTube, it'll pop up. But if you guys have good spots to watch it at, or channels that you like to watch it on, good chance to give a shout out to the channel. While there's almost 1,000 people in here, hit that like button as well on your way out. You guys are the best as always. And we'll be back at it soon.